Good morning.
Hi.
Here's Ella and Gretchen. Gretchen, this is your practice coach for today. I'd like you to greet her appropriately. What does that mean to greet somebody appropriately?
Hi, Gretchen.
Hi, Ella.
Okay. So, what are your expectations for practice, Gretchen?
I'm expecting to have a really nice time and fun time and not having someone interrupting me while I'm talking or giving suggestions. And showing they're actually listening to something and then looking like the other way and getting bored. And
Instead of like, if you're saying this now, I would be like that, sort of.
Are you telling Gretchen what she's supposed to do, or are you waiting patiently for her to finish talking?
Sorry.
Okay, I'm not interested in you interrupting Gretchen. She's in charge. Okay? Could you please apologize to her for interrupting?
Sorry, Gretchen, for interrupting you while you were talking about what you want me to do.
Okay, what would you like to have happen when your student wants to ask you something or say something?
I'd like her to kind of, if I'm talking, I'd like myself to finish the sentence before someone tells me something. Or if you want to ask me something, you can raise your hand if you want, or you can like show some kind of signal with your bow or something, showing me that you want to say something.
Sort of like this?
Kind of, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you agreed to the practice terms, Ella?
Yeah.
Okay, you may begin. Thank you, Gretchen.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Okay, what do you want to start off with? What do you usually start off with?
Well, I don't have my Quinta Etudes book, so we're skipping that.
Do you start off with bow exercises?
Sort of, and the day so I can warm up my bow, or my fingers off my bow.
Okay, then do you want to start bow exercises?
I haven't done them yet, so.
Okay, then do some bow exercises.
These are the only ones I really know.
I know some bow exercises. Should I go get my bow to show her?
If you want to, I think Ella has some bow exercises that she's supposed to do, right, Ella?
Yeah.
Okay, so why aren't you doing those?
I am.
Oh, okay, fine.
I'm gonna go get my bow so I can show you some other ones that are helpful for me.
Okay, keep doing your exercises then while you wait.
And that one is much bigger than yours. Alright. So the other exercise for your bow, like to get you warmed up, is sometimes you can have a bow under there and a bow on top. So like pushing against it, because then that shows you you have enough strength.
Except that my bow doesn't tighten. Really. Well, violin bows aren't really supposed to be tightened that much. I need to loosen more. Okay.
So now you're gonna push against mine and see if you can keep your fingers in that, because then that helps with strengthening your fingers to play with your bow for a while.
Did Kathy show you that?
You and Kathy showed me that, yes.
A little more so my bow hair doesn't touch.
So now you're gonna push against my bow, but you're not gonna do it too much, or you're like. And then you're gonna hold it there for a while, and then right now, like I'm pushing against this, and my fingers are already starting to get warmed up, and like this helps with bowing. Like if you're
Like
you're
if you're or like trying to bow your string really.
Ella, I'm not sure that was relevant. Okay, I think you're getting in the habit of thinking when you practice with people that you get to talk a lot, and actually your job is to really listen a lot. Okay? Could you please keep that in mind?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so when you bow, now your fingers are warmed up because you've been doing an exercise where your fingers are in its place and you're like pushing on, like you both are it's like a war, kind of tug of war with the bow. But the thing is that you don't want, like if I can push against here and you don't have any grip, like you're just like, no, not like that. It's like if you're actually like if it goes like this and then yours falls, then that means you don't have a big grip on the bow and that you need to like work on getting your fingers warmed up more easily. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you wanna try that exercise or do you wanna just move on? Like we can try that exercise where you're actually using strength and then are you tuned?
Yeah.
Okay, then let's try that one more time. See, I can push you,
You're
which means
thickening my. No, I mean like you're doing.
I'm holding the bow like I should while I'm playing cello.
I feel like you're gonna break my bow. That's why.
I'm not going to. You can't break the bow unless you want taking it a lot or you play really fast. See, so look. So you don't have enough grip on that bow. You don't have enough grip because I'm pushing you down. Which
Sorry.
you just flicked my bow out of the way. Okay.
Sorry.
So so I'm actually pushing you down, which means that definitely you don't have enough grip on the bow and that you need more grip on the bow. Because in order to, I can see like that you're actually trying and stuff if you're like really gripped. Like right now I'm really gripped and I haven't even touched my cello yet. So then like, see, I'm still pushing you down, which means that you need a bigger grip on the bow and you need to put your fingers actually how you play with them. So is that how you play? Like you use your violin and you play with your finger, like with the fingers? You're sure? Because I go like this, and once you do that, like once you beat me and you're pushing me forward like that, then that means you have a big grip on the bow. But if I'm putting you down like that, that means you don't have a big grip. Okay? So that's like the main focus we can do next time or whenever I'm practicing.
Okay, well, thank you, Gretchen. I think that we can move on from the bow exercises for now. I think Ella could check in with Danielle a little more, or Marcia sometime.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so you're not doing quint etude, right?
Right, because I do have a
Ella, so what are you going to do now?
shortcut shifting.
All right, go ahead. I do have suggestions and some comments and some need work on. When you were doing the shifting, like it seemed like it could have been smoother. Like you were going do, and then you kind of jumped, like, and it wasn't that smooth. I could hear some between then. And then you played the note, so I think it could be smoother, and you know what a shift is, right?
Yeah.
Zoom, not a zoom. And I just think you need more smoothness between notes because then it sounds cleaner. And if you are playing it for Danielle or someone, or Marcia or Mommy, then you have they can hear sometimes that you have like a space between them and it's not that smooth of a shift. So I think you should work on getting the shift smoother between notes because I could hear some dung and then like on. So I think you need more smooth shift and not a jump, but like an actual shift to the next note, which is higher.
Yeah. Okay. Should I try one and see if I can make it smoother?
Yes.
Okay. Except that my fingers slid like that.
Yeah. Maybe it. Well, yeah. You kind of stopped in between and stuff because it was like you had this time where you stopped because of that has happened to me before.
Same.
So yeah, that sounded a little better. I mean, you could still do some more work on it,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what. I guess we're moving on.
Okay. Do you know these scales? E flat and E flat.
Ella,
Does it matter?
I don't think it's your job to ask the coach whether she knows things or not. Okay? That's not appropriate. Your job is to listen, and you can tell her you're doing the scales, and you can ask her if she wants you to play it. But your job isn't to tell the coach or ask the coach what their level of knowledge is. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, it's none of your business whether she knows the scale or not. Your business is to do your practice, not to focus on what the practice coach knows. So apologize to Gretchen and then move on, please.
Sorry, Gretchen.
It's fine. All right. So can you play the A flat major?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop you on that one. I heard that your string played with the string next to it on one of them. I think it was on the
E.
that one and that one. It's the E, A,
D.
D, the D and the A played together.
Wait.
And excuse me.
But
And so you started on the G, right?
Yeah.
I'm correct. Okay,
no,
G.
we start on A flat, but it's on the G string, so yeah.
Well, I said G string.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Sorry.
that's correct. G, D. So when you got to the D, I heard the A string with it, like playing with it, like on the first note you played.
You mean on the E?
I think what she's saying is that when you played a note, she could hear the string next to the note, the string you were playing. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So do you understand what she's saying? Your bow hit two strings at the same time. So she's saying that you need to look at your bow a little more carefully, right?
Yes.
Okay, could you try it again and do Gretchen's suggestion? I think that's a very, very good suggestion, Gretchen.
Hear between strings when you were like moving strings, like a little because it sounded like you weren't like moving your bow kind of smooth enough to the next string, and that has happened to me before where I was playing and then I had a and I'm still doing that, but I think you can have a smoother like move between strings, so like have a smooth little thing at the top. So for example, since I have my bow, if I'm playing the cello, I'd be like that, and then I'd slowly move my bow like that or something, because I could hear it between strings, like showing it's not too smooth switching strings. So, do you want to try it one more time? That was definitely much better, and you did do what I said you did. And you kind of set things in certain places and really thought about what you were doing and put your hand on the next string before you played, and that made it much smoother between going then and then you kept your hand on that string while you switched strings. So it was kind of and stuff. So what do you have next? Oh yeah, the E flat
major scale.
The only thing I have to say about that is at the beginning you play 3 of the notes really long and then the rest of them very short. And I think maybe you can play the first note long because you're just starting the piece, but I mean, if you're going to play the first note long, you're going to play the rest of them long. If you're going to play the first note short, you're going to play the rest of them short, because it needs to be balanced. Because if you go into Danielle's or something and then like she can hear it, but you're doing 3 long at the beginning and then the rest of them short, you have to have something that's equal. So it'd be a short note at the beginning and the short note's the rest, a long note at the beginning and long note at the rest. Or if you're doing something like long short, then like you have to have a pattern going, and you can't just do like 2 different things at the same time. Because I know at the beginning you're just starting and stuff, so you're like, should I play these longer or should I play these shorter? But I mean, before you play it, you have to think about if you want them short or you want them long. And once you do that, you will have an equally laid out scale, and it will sound smooth, and it will sound like you've actually done something with it than just doing 3 long notes at the beginning and the rest of them short.
Okay. So should I try it again?
Sure. And just count in your head also. Like count, let's say you wanted to 2/4 time or something.
Yeah.
So it'd be like 1, 2, 1, 2. So when you're playing the first note, you're counting 1, 2, second note, 1, 2, third note, 1, 2, fourth note, 1, 2. So then that equals it out. So if you're saying something in your head like 1, 2, 3, 4, if you want it that long, or 1, or 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, or 1 and 2 and, then you have something going on in your mind, but you're also playing the violin or the cello or whatever you're doing, and you're really counting in your head, showing that you're doing something. So I'm like, pretend I'm playing, I'm doing first note, so I'm counting in 1. So then that levels everything out and makes it sound much better, and you will have the equal amount of time using your bow, because I could tell you were counting like you were maybe counting like 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, or 1 and something, because I heard some notes that went a tiny smidge longer than the others. So just level out by counting 1, 2 in your head, or 1, or whatever you're doing. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions about that?
No.
No? All right. What else do you have? An arpeggio. Do you have an arpeggio?
For the E flat major, I think.
Did you do the arpeggio for the E flat major?
Not yet.
Okay, choose your arpeggio. I have comments for everything. um, I thought it was nice, but how do I say this? You have to put some feeling into it, even though it's an arpeggio scale, because can you go to rest position? Because arpeggios, even though they don't seem like much, they actually are worth a lot, because arpeggios can pretty much show up anywhere, and I mean, when you play an arpeggio, you kind of have to get used to playing it with dynamics, because I mean, I think it's kind of important, because you could start off big and then get smaller, but I mean, I think it'd be good to go small and then big to small. And as I said before, it doesn't seem like they are much, but arpeggios actually can show up in pieces. They can show up in other places, and I mean, it's important to know that you can actually put dynamics just into a small, 4 to 6 note arpeggio. So I mean,
Yeah.
so that's something definitely to think about. Do you want to try? And then I'll see.
Try it again.
Yeah, and then I'll tell you what I heard, what dynamics I heard throughout that small arpeggio. At the beginning I heard forte, like a big forte, just forte the whole way through of the first one, and then coming down. And coming down, I definitely heard forte to piano. So the second one was good, the second coming down one was good. But the first one, definitely, you can just fool around and try to, and not just have forte all the way up, put your violin in rest position. So all you need to think about is that arpeggios aren't worth it a lot, but you can put dynamics into it, no matter what. Okay?
Should I try it one more time?
Yeah. I think you're good. You just have to remember that. And then I don't know when I'm practicing with you again, so I mean,
Okay.
I'll just trust that you're doing stuff.
Okay.
Alright, let's see.
On to my chromatic scale.
I was just about to read that. Excuse me. Chromatic scale, gentle fingers, apple plum. Is that what you put in there?
Sort of, because we have single bows, and then slurs. We sort of name our slurs. Sort of, I guess.
Okay. Try your chromatic scale with
Should I just
gentle fingers.
Okay.
I think you're back in that habit after the first thing we did, where I can hear it tikun between strings. And I know chromatic scales you have to keep going pretty much, because it's a chromatic scale, and that's pretty much the whole point of it. So, I mean, all you have to do is make sure you're moving your fingers. Even if you're playing a high note, you have to quickly move your fingers to the next string. So between then, your bow doesn't do, or you have to use your bow smoother, or you just, in general, you maybe have to move your fingers back a little, fingers forward a little. There were 1 or 2 notes that were out of tune. I can't name them because I'm not one to no treble clef unless I'm playing my own piece and I take time.
Yeah.
But I mean, definitely you just need like a smoother tone, kind of. Do you get that?
Yeah, I get it. Like when I switch strings and like.
You don't have to explain it. I know what that is.
sorry.
So just keep in mind that you definitely have to slowly and carefully think things out and to slowly practice it. I know everybody hates slowly practicing things. Well, I know I do. I don't know if you do. But definitely slowly practicing things is good. Okay. And you can have Danielle record it or something if she already did that on a recording or something. But definitely maybe have her record it and explain it to you better than I can. Let's see. Review. Yes. P motion doubles.
Perpetual motion.
Fast plus loose fingers.
Yeah.
I was reading that, Ella. Fast plus loose fingers.
Sorry.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
It just means you do it really fast, but I think on the bow hand, your hand is just really.
I know. It sounds like what it is.
Yeah.
So I mean. Okay.
I have to use them.
Do you want me to hold your violin?
No, it's fine. What speed should I try before I just go to this speed? Because this speed is pretty fast.
Probably a slow speed.
So
It's better to work your way up.
you can pick.
It's better to work your way up than 208.
8.
So I'd say about. I don't want it too slow.
Yeah.
92 to 100. Does that sound good? Because I mean, you have to start out slow before you go all the way to fast. Because if you just play it fast, then there's going to be tons of things to work on,
Yeah,
no matter what you do.
So, yeah.
And since
So-
I'm working on perpetual motion with someone right now,
So I'm.
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So-
Okay.
What speed is that? Okay, I guess try 100.
Wait.
No, I'm gonna stop you there anyway.
Yeah.
On the doubles, I know you have to play do 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 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think they need to be louder because if you're playing this in front of someone, for example, your group, like your group class, or Danielle, or Marsha, or Mommy, or just an audience, or teddy bears, or whatever. I don't care. Or a video. You want it to be loud, but also soft. And even though they're doubles, you can still use a lot of hand, like a lot of bow hand, because if you're using just a little bit, you can't hear much. And I just told this to one of my students on Monday because they were playing perpetual motion too. But you definitely, you have to bring out your sound because you use a lot of sound. A violin's loud, okay?
Yeah.
A violin's loud. You can fill this whole room plus the dining room with your sound. And that goes for cello too, but I mean, you really need a lot of sound. So pretend you're playing in front of my half sister right now or something. And you're really giving her a big performance because it's her birthday, because it is actually her birthday. But, yeah, but I mean, you have to really bring out your sound. So if I'm talking like this, the room over can hear me because you're talking really loudly. And that goes for the violin too. Because if you're just playing like you sound like a mouse. You're not bringing out what your violin can really do. Because violin, as I've heard, can do a lot. Like, that instrument's loud. So I need Nando. That instrument needs to come out and not just a little squeaky sound at the beginning. And then you keep the squeaky sound throughout the whole thing using, like, this much bow. Like, that's, you need to really you need to really show me that your violin can take a lot, and that you could just play in a really loud tone, and that you're not just like a squeaky mouse that's playing with, I don't know, like a fingertips, like a fingers, bow. Because I do want to try it where you're using much more bow, but you're still doing doubles and you're really bringing it out. And even mommy can tell you that it sounds a little quieter, and that we want you to bring it out throughout the room, overlooking Nando's whining. Okay, so I need you to do that. I need you to use a little more bow, even though they're doubles, just to show us that you can play really loudly.
Okay.
And pretend you're in front of like an audience or Danielle or someone. Keep going. That sounds good, but even though you're playing louder, you don't get faster. Like, even if you're playing louder, like, some people have habits of going faster if they're playing louder.
Yeah.
I think Nando might need to go outside. But, I mean, it sounds like you were playing faster, but you were definitely playing louder, and I think all you need to do is kind of slowly and carefully work things out. Like, I do want it faster, definitely, and I'm sure Danielle might want it, like,
really fast. So
I don't know, like you're playing it at 208.
we're just close to the end of the metronome.
That is the end of the metronome, I believe.
No.
Yep, wait, no, there's one more after. But, literally, take it slowly and carefully, because it doesn't work just to play it at 208 the first time you pick up the violin the day that you're playing it. Even though you've played it for a while, you definitely need to do it. Yeah.
I just have one question. Ella, what does it say next to perpetual motion on the sheet of paper?
It says fast and loose fingers.
What does that mean? Can you explain that to Gretchen, since she wasn't at the lesson? Show her what the fast, loose fingers mean.
And it means sort of like if you're going really fast, your bow hand fingers are really light.
Okay.
That definitely does work. I have tried that before. It does work if you have loose fingers and you're going fast, because your fingers really have control over the bow, even though you're sometimes mostly used to like cramp, like moving your fingers where you're holding the bow. For example, if I'm doing this, I'm really holding the bow, and then if I'm loose, I actually have more control of the bow. and I can go as fast as I want with the bow. So definitely Danielle's suggestion of fast and loose fingers is definitely something you should do, because it does help with everything you're doing. You can go faster, you can go, and when you're really holding the bow, you're going slower. But if you're keeping loose, like Danielle wants, you're really actually going faster, and you have more control of like where you want your bow to go and stuff. So definitely that's...
What's a good way to develop the muscles to stay on the bow even when you're going fast like that, Gretchen?
I think to develop your muscles and stuff, I suggest that if you're holding the bow, like you're really used to like having the muscles there and ready, and then when you're loose, it's like your muscles aren't doing anything. But when you're actually looking at it, they are doing something, because there's no way you can hold a bow without having some kind of grip of the bow. And so if you look at my thumb, I always have my thumb like right here. And my thumb is working no matter what. Even if it's loose, my thumb's still in that position where it's working hard to hold up the bow. And once you do that, once you know that your thumb's actually doing something and you're not just letting your thumb rest, because if you leave your thumb, so like for example, if like your thumb's just like right under here like I used to do, your thumb's pretty much not working. It's just sitting there on the bottom part of your bow. And like literally it's not doing much, because if you're looking at this, see, it's not even like working that much. It's just sitting there. So I mean, I suggest like, since you're playing like right under your bow hair, or right above your bow hair, it's actually working right now. But it wasn't working here, it's only working here. And so like to develop the muscle, you need to slowly and carefully work out and do some exercises with your fingers, like move them around slowly and carefully, like, and you see right now mine are loose. You can see that they're loose, like, and this finger right here is holding on, like holding on and not having a lot of things that it's doing. But it, like, you can tell, it's like, you can tell sometimes when someone's not even using their thumb. But their thumb's actually the most important part of your bow, pretty much. Like if you're holding the bow. Because these fingers, they're just relaxing on here and they're playing with the bow. But actually, when you actually look at it, your thumb's pretty much the one that's working most of the time. Because it's always under there holding the bow. Because if I just do that, like if I can't even hold it, because this thumb is really the one that's supporting every single finger that's on your bow. So when you're playing, you have to recognize that your thumb is actually doing something, even though it doesn't seem like it's doing anything. It's actually holding on, like it's a it's a finger like muscle that's actually holding on to the bow and supporting your whole hand. So even if it's loose, your thumb's the one that's doing most of the work. Your thumb is not loose. Your thumb is still in the same position it was when you're not loose.
So that's really fascinating, Gretchen. I'm really, really intrigued with how you explain it. It's wonderful. So if you were imagining yourself playing perpetual motion right now, what would your thumb actually be? What job would it be doing?
Well, my thumb would be sitting here still. Like, it's in the same position every single time. Even if you're doing plucking and you're holding your bow, your thumb's still working for you to hold the bow. So, I mean, like, if you're doing that, then like you'll definitely know that even if you're playing slowly and carefully, and you really need to show yourself that you know that your thumb's working hard. So when you're playing your piece or you're playing perpetual motion, you really need to think about what your thumb's doing. Your thumb is the most important part of like the bow right now. Your thumb is helping you with perpetual motion, because you're holding this in here and you're still loose, but you could see that your thumb's actually doing most of the work. So if I'm bowing right now, you can see my thumb's pretty much doing most of the work, because these fingers right here, they're just taking a relaxing break. But if the thumb will always be working no matter what you're doing, always. So like your thumb's pretty much doing everything right now for you, not your fingers, because your fingers are loose and they're just sitting there relaxing, ready to like get another grip on the bow. And even if you're gripping on the bow, your thumb's still holding every single finger onto the bow. Your thumb's the most important part of your hand, and that's why if you injure your thumb or something, you can't really do much with a bow or something because you'd be holding on like this with your thumb, like hurt and everything. And then that just gives you like, you could do that, but then this injures all your fingers. Like this just injures all your fingers if you keep doing this all the time. You don't have your thumb because your thumb's holding up your bow. So when you play perpetual motion, I want you to kind of recognize that your thumb is doing most of the work. With a loose and fast bow, your thumb is doing most of the work. So when you're playing, I'd like you to look sometimes at your thumb and recognize that it's actually doing most of the work right now and not your fingers, even though it's fast. Okay? So just start the beginning, and then I'll tell you what I think after like a couple measures. Alright. So now you're back in that habit of playing really thin bows, like do 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 do, like a little mouse, and you're only giving about, I'm gonna kind of exaggerate, but about like that much bow at the max. And your fingers aren't that loose, like I could tell. You're kind of still holding on there because you're used to like holding on, like, and not keeping them loose. And when I can tell when they're loose, when they're actually kind of just resting there, like looking like that. They're just like taking their time and they're resting. But for me, when I looked at you, your hands were in the position of playing, and you're holding on as tight as you can because you're afraid that your bow will fall when you're playing loose. And in that, you need to make sure that you can trust your finger and your thumb. And you need to trust your thumb, even whenever you're playing. If you're playing slow, if you're playing fast, if you're playing like super duper fast or something, or mezzo forte or piano, but you really need to trust your thumb. Your thumb will not let go unless your bow slips out of your hand or something. Your thumb will always be on there, and you need to trust your thumb. I don't want you to not trust your thumb. Your thumb is pretty much the working the working tool right now. These fingers are just relaxing. So I could tell you were still holding on tight, like you were scared that if you like went loose, your bow would fall. I could tell with your face and with your hand and how you were playing kind of like that. So you, as I said before, you need to trust your thumb. Your thumb will not go anywhere unless you drop the bow, unless you put your bow down. Your thumb will always be on there. And I need you to trust it because you will not get anywhere in life if you don't trust your thumb on the bow, okay? And I need you to do longer bows, like when you're doing doubles. Even though you're playing fast, you can still, with longer bows, play really fast with loose fingers and stuff. And I just want you to trust your thumb and to know what you're doing with your bow, and always check in with your hand. Even if you're playing and you don't know the piece too well or something, I need you to check in with your hand and to trust that your thumb, if you're playing loose, your thumb will always be on there, and your thumb is the working thumb. Like that's why thumb's there. It works all the time. It works to type on phones. It works to hold your bow. It works to hold things. So I need you to trust your thumb. It's no question of not trusting your thumb. You need to. Okay? And that's the most important thing. You need to trust it. Like, I'm serious about this. I'm not just a random person, like a random stuffy that's talking to you over and over again and giving you a lecture about your thumb. But I'm not. I'm a person, and I need you to trust it. Okay, I'm serious about this, okay? The next time I practice with you, I don't know when, probably next weekend, since I'm pretty busy during the week. I'm gonna definitely look for more, like, thumb holding on there, and know you can trust it. Because I can tell you don't trust it right now, because it's one thumb. But the thumb works a lot, okay? You get that? So talk to Danielle about that, definitely. Maybe Mommy could talk to her about that, about what I said with the thumb, and see what Danielle's advice is. You can also repeat back what I said. You can give in quotations that I said that you need to trust your thumb, because literally, even Danielle might disagree or she might agree, but like if she does agree, then you have proof that there's already two people, a violinist and a cellist, and then maybe even Mommy saying something about that, a violinist and a cellist. Mommy has probably experienced some things like that before, where she had to trust her thumb throughout practicing. Or Sammy might have to, because he's always holding his thumb on the clarinet, and so his thumb is really helping him hold the clarinet also. Okay?
Okay.
So just talk to Danielle about that whenever you're seeing her. I don't know when you're seeing her. I guess Wednesday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can maybe, you can also talk to her about the thumb and get her advice on it, and just say that I said that you need to trust your thumb, okay? Because the thumb is something that you have to trust whenever you're playing.
Okay, well, Ella is really pretty good about making some videos on her own. So maybe you could do one more thing and then you can get to your practicing. I'm going to give you 20 minutes credit on your own practicing. Or
So
do you
that
want
means I
to
have
wrap
20
it up right now?
I can do a little bit more.
Or do you want to, what are you going to make a video of, Ella?
I don't really know about.
All right, well, I'll have you make a video of
Does she want to try one of the Zeitz for me?
the sites. She can do those on her own. You can do your first etude book on your own. You can do wolf art on your own. And
Does she need help with the trio?
no, I think she can do the rest on her own. You know what to do. You've been given lots of help and advice. By the way, the cost of this practice session is $10, which you need to give Gretchen from your own money. And I forgot to tell you that every time you yawn and you don't say excuse me, you owe your practice coach $1. So you need to go and give $11 of your own money to Gretchen right now before we end up the tape. Okay? And you need to thank her appropriately for her hard work with you.
Thank you, Gretchen, for helping me with some of my practicing.
Yeah, and I'll see if I can practice with you some other time.
So she'll bring you the money and then she'll make her video.
Okay.
Good job, kids. Thank you so much.